Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over an effect I've used in a few of my songs. Echo tail textures are a great way to spice up certain sections of your song, especially to aid transitions. It's common to use a delay to echo a sound out across a transitional point, but I've found a way to sculpt the echo such that it doesn't really sound like a delay and functions more as a texture or sound effect. Here's an example from my song Sunrise with vocals from Lauren Power. And now in the context of the song, now, I know it's subtle, but I'd like to highlight the effect that this has on the listener. I'd say for the first 1 or 2 bars, you can notice the effect, but there are lots of other changes going on in the instrumental as well, so the attention is drawn to those things that have a little bit more happening in them, and the delay sits there as more of like a sound effect texture. So it rings out over the course of 6 bars, and then it slowly comes back up in volume and gets a little bit more distorted towards the end. And then right at the end of the 6th bar, it drops out in volume, creating this cutout effect. And it has a similar psycho-acoustic effect to when an air conditioner is turned off abruptly, and you have the jarring realization that there was actually a noise there all along. Because the effect is so low in the mix, it doesn't feel quite as jarring. But it does give the last 2 bars of the section a very clean, breath of fresh air kind of feeling. You can use this effect in any way that you like. You can have it be a lot more noticeable, a lot more forward in the mix. You can make it change pitch over time quite easily. You can post-process it with effects that make it feel a lot more otherworldly or abstract. And the way that you use it is totally up to you. Often producers will use noise samples such as white noise or impact to transition in this way, and you can certainly layer it with an impact the way that I have, but the neat thing about using an echo tail is that since it's echoing off a sound that was already in the mix, it's going to blend in a lot more smoothly than a sound that's just been dropped into the mix. That being said, let's take a look at the process of how to make this effect. So first you're obviously going to need some source audio. I'm just going to use the keyboard snippet from the original song, but you could use this on anything like guitars, vocals, anything that sounds nice to begin with will probably sound nice after you've applied the effect to it. To start off with, I'm going to add an echo, and I'm also going to add a limiter right off the bat. Just in case the volume gets out of hand when we're working with high feedback, this will save our ears and our speakers. I'm going to set the ceiling to be -6 decibels just to be safe. And over in the echo unit, I'm going to set the dry wet to 100 and turn off the filters just for now. Next, I'm going to select both of these effects and hit Ctrl or Command G to group them. Then I'm going to head over to the chain list and right-click to create a new chain. The one with the effects is going to be renamed wet, and the empty chain is going to be renamed dry. Now, the name of the game with this effect is automation. We're going to be automating a bunch of the parameters within the echo as well as the dry wet levels. First off, I'm going to set the feedback to be around 75% so we get a bit of a tail to begin with, and I'm going to modulate the input. So if you right click it and click show automation in new lane, it's going to create a new lane for the automation up here. This lane is where you decide how much of the input signal is going to be fed into the echo initially, so you can have it just apply to a specific sweet spot of the input signal. I'm just going to put it on the last beat before the sound cuts out. So initially that's going to sound like this. Next, I'm going to automate the feedback knob. So right click that, show automation in new lane. And I want it to start out with a relatively low delay and then eventually go up past 100%. This means the volume that is being fed back internally within the echo will eventually become louder than it was to begin with, creating a positive feedback loop that will eventually get louder and louder and begin to distort. And this is where you can create some of those crunchy textures which can fill out the mix nicely. Once I've got that set to how I like, we can mess with the left and right timing. If you want to get more of a stereo delay, set these to different values or give it an offset. The way you set these all comes down to just how you want it to sit in the mix, if you want it to be wider, if you want it to be more central, and what kind of rhythm you want it to have. If we set these to 16ths or notes that are not dotted, you'll hear that it has a much different rhythm. I'm going to do something different and set this to a dotted 16th note, unlink them, and set the other one to a 16th triplet. Test again how that feedback curve works with the new timing. You might need to adjust it. If you set the delay to a smaller division, like 1/16th, and you have the feedback below 100%, it will trail out faster than a slower division. However, if you have it above 100% feedback, it will also distort a lot faster because the entire process has been sped up. So you'll need to adjust the feedback automation curve accordingly. Once you're happy with that, we can re-enable the filters in the echo and start automating these parameters. We can use the low pass to initially shave off some of the high end that comes in as the effect begins to distort. With the high end being removed like that, you'll notice that the effect trails off a lot faster than it did before, but we can account for this by increasing the resonance over time, which introduces new harmonics that get distorted and can reintroduce the high end. I'm going to automate the resonance like this so that it starts out low, but then as soon as some of those high frequencies start to get lost, it slowly starts coming in and eventually gets to a point where it will be pushing the signal hard enough into the feedbacks that it distorts and reintroduces some of the high end. I'm going to do the same with the high pass filter, show automation in new lane. So it's going to start out at the bottom and then after a little while it will start to come up and then maybe drop back down again in the opposite shape that the low pass filter did. And we'll notice that this causes us to lose a lot of low end. So I'll get ready to automate the resonance of that as well. Pushing the low end can give you some really interesting distortion that fills out the sound a lot, and you can obviously EQ this out at the end so that it doesn't muddy up your mix. So you can really push the bounds with this. Alright, that sounds good to me. Finally, I'm going to automate the volume of the wet signal so we can control exactly when the effect comes in and out of the mix. I'm going to set it to blend in right when the input signal ends, and then it's going to cut out right at the end of this phrase here. I'm going to set this exponential curve here so that it has a bit of a nice smooth release sound instead of just cutting out abruptly. We can also automate the volume over the course of the effect so that it starts out a little bit louder, comes down, fades out, and then without the listener really noticing it, it's going to slowly grow up and then drop off. Once you've got all of these set, you can go ahead and mess around with them to really sculpt the sound into what you're looking for, something that will suit the mix, just get a cool effect out of it. I would also recommend turning down the feedback once the effect is over. Once you've done all this, you can automate the timing of the left and right signals so that you get some pitch modulation. If you want to change the timing without the pitch modulation, you can just uncheck this re-pitch button in the character tab. You can also post-process it however you like, maybe add a little bit of chorus, some flanger. You can add some reverb. I'm going to put this in a small dark room and chuck on a flanger while I'm at it as well. I'd also encourage you to automate the parameters within the post-processing if you really want to get crafty with it. So for this flanger, I'm just going to automate it so it slowly mixes in over the course of the effect, and that can give it a little bit of extra stereo width. Maybe a little bit of OTT, never hurt anybody. Anyway, I'm happy with how that's sounding right now, so I could of course flatten it if I wanted, manipulate the audio a little bit, but that's the effect, and anything else is a bonus. Let me know if you use this effect in any of your songs, and also let me know if you have any interesting ideas for how to take this sound a bit further. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave the video a like, subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, and if you liked the song demonstrated in this, Sunrise, it's available to stream on all major streaming services. I'll leave a link to that, and I'll also leave a link to my album which I just released, Forget the Cost. It's available to stream on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, SoundCloud, etc. You can support me through Bandcamp if you feel so inclined, and I will be forever grateful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.